Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TechGig podcast. I'm your host, Sukriti Aduvanshi, and today I'm here with an interesting conversation on hybrid work model, things cloud practitioners should know. The several past months have been the acceleration of multi-cloud implementations. In addition to using private clouds, employees working remotely are also accessing applications from public clouds and consuming services delivered from the cloud. Hybrid clouds and distributed computing will be standard for the foreseeable future. In such scenarios, a new model is required to securely enable an increasingly remote workforce, one that delivers consistent security and an optimal experience regardless of where users are located or which applications they access. To talk about all the various devices that will come into play, how many people we need to secure in the cloud, and how to align networking security to emerging businesses and employee needs, today I'll be chatting with Huzefa Motiwala, Director Systems Engineering India and SAARC, Palo Alto Networks. Huzefa is responsible for spearheading technical sales engagement from strategy to execution for customers and partners. Welcome to the show, Huzefa.
Hey, thanks, Sukriti. Excited to be here and discuss the all-important topic of hybrid work from home and how do we take it to the next level, applying the right set of cybersecurity to it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a part of this show, Zefa. I'm looking forward to some great insights for our cloud practitioners on the hybrid work model here. So let's just quickly get on to the questions. How have hybrid workforces become the new normal, Josefa?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting place to start, and let's take a step back. Right, what essentially happened, now close to 1.5 years back, is when the pandemic hit. Uh, there was this sudden urge for companies to kind of get into this hybrid work model, and the whole digital disruption or digital business transformation journey started. But I want to take a step back and say, how did it accelerate it, right? The reason it did is because there were some very, very key technologies which existed around that time, which kind of helped the whole journey. And I won't be wrong in saying that it created some game-changing opportunities even in those moments of crisis. And I'm really talking about three things here, right? So the one is expanded connectivity. More and more people were online, and mobility was all up there, right? So the connectivity factor was like there. Number two, the cloud capability, right? The cloud was there, the cloud economics, the cloud agility, the promise of delivering things instantaneously and on the go, which was enabling organizations to be far more flexible and move faster to operate and innovate at scale, right? So that underlying platform was there to be leveraged. And finally, AI and ML, right? It was there and it leveraged the masses of data which we were ever collecting and delivering some very, very critical business insight that help enterprise make some very, very huge leaps in decision making. So what we saw essentially is enterprises leveraging these technologies around the world, right, and ensure that business continuity happened, and more so ensured that remote productivity continued when people went and approached or adapted to this new model from anywhere and everywhere. And they started reimagining the most effective and safe way to engage the customer in a contactless world, right? To an extent, specifically in the area of healthcare and education, it kind of reinvented the whole sector and ensured an equitable access. We just kickstarted the entire telehealth and remote learning aspect. So some very, very exciting thing which followed, and that's how it has become the norm. And to an extent, I don't have to go very far and give an example. We at Palo Alto Networks are one of the biggest examples of that, right? When the pandemic hit, we leverage these technologies. We leverage not only that, but to overcome some of the secured access perspective, we leverage our own solutions, the service access, secure access service edge, and delivered, and now have the option to an extent after 1.5 years. It becomes so normal that we have left the choice as part of our test work. We've left the choice and taken that choice away from the employer to an employee in terms of how he wants to engage in this new world and drive productivity, in a hybrid manner, be in the office or be work from home. The choice is completely us. So that essentially in a nutshell for me is how the new normal is.
Right, Huzefa, and I completely agree that we have so many technologies have erupted in the past couple of years. I'm sure that the tech experts were working onto it, but that push that the pandemic has given to the technological development all around the world is phenomenal altogether. Moving on to the next one, Huzefa, why is there an urgent need for a new model to securely enable today's increasing remote workforce?
Yeah, that's interesting. And when we look at the change and carrying on from our last of the first question, right? When we look at the landscape, what happened? What happened essentially is all these users and data and devices which were confined to this old architecture of being this, behind a secure data center, uh, everything being accessed via that, completely disrupted. And how? Two major things. One is this end devices, the user, and the way it collaborated using applications on the endpoint could be managed, unmanaged, ripped out of that confined of the data center to the homes, to remote offices, to remote places. And at the same time, they ended up accessing applications which were not restricted to the data center, but all over. And we talked about cloud, we talked about, SaaS as an application, sanction, unsanctioned. So essentially, the entire landscape got completely ripped apart. And what we ended up having is those crown jewels of the organization, right? The critical data that we talk about, the critical applications, the devices, were all over the place. And the protect surface, which we call in our language, which you need to protect the crown jewels, were all over the place. And you needed some really, really redefining new way of kind of addressing and securing them. Uh, but if you look at any statistics, what it says that a lot of these strategic data of the organization started living at the endpoint, right? In the new scheme of things. To an extent, we almost saw 3x increase in the number of endpoints, or that's being the envisaged by 2023. What also happened was, while we talk about how these devices and users proliferated across remote locations and hybrid locations, the applications that are being accessed and started moving into the cloud also started happening in a very, very ad hoc, accelerated way, uh, keeping security at a backseat, right? So that struggle to deliver consistent security across your existing data centers and the cloud somewhere took the backseat. So what happened essentially is, out of these, because of the data being all pervasive, because of security being thought on as afterthought, there was a spate of increase in the attack. The adversaries out there took note of these, and you look at any statistics, and one statistics goes by that there is almost a 300% rise in ransomware attack, for example, right? Hence, this warranted a completely different approach, a very, very different approach, in which to ensure that in this new model, how do you go about securing things? And it has to be more bolt-on, not an afterthought. And we at Palo Alto Network, sat to look back and said, let's simplify this in terms of goals, and let's simplify the goal by saying that all users, irrespective of which devices they access, which application they reach to, using whatever network, home, office, remote branch, accessing whatever data, let's try and secure all that, irrespective of the location, and deliver that consistent, secure productivity collaboration that an organization needs. So that essentially has warranted to relook and relook security in a new way.
Yes, Josefa, and I think that is one of the biggest concerns for all the businesses running in this time, because we look at secured workforce as well as secured businesses. So I think that's a very important element to address, and is a concern for all of us looking at the kind of cyber attacks that we've witnessed, at least in the last couple of months, right? So, moving on to the next one, what is the significance of SaaS in aligning networking and security to emerging businesses and employee needs?
Yeah, that's interesting. And SaaS is something which is what the future is. And when you look at secure access services, the way it started a few years back, nobody would have thought that it would take a center stage today. And let's take a step back and kind of deconstruct SASE, right? I talked about in the earlier question, right, the way the entire infra landscape has kind of become all pervasive, right, with devices being accessed from your home, from your official devices, from your mobile phones, using whatever networks that's there, right, either a home network or a secured network or through a VPN, and accessing applications in the cloud or data center. Now, what has happened is that each of these entities has become a sort of, as I said, the crown jewels on which the adversaries are going, and your protect surfaces, which become user, your devices, they need to be protected, and they need to be protected right there at that edge, right, where the connectivity starts. So SASE is something which is exactly what it delivers. It's a convergence of your WAN, your wide area network, and your network security, right? Services like your cloud access service broker, your firewall, your zero trust, all being delivered via cloud. So it's a software defined cloud delivered network, as well as security converging and delivering as a service. And it's all based upon the identity of that entity. And this is an interesting thing, because entity here could be the user who's there at the end, or the devices that he is using, right? Or it could be a group of people, or entity could be an application which these guys are accessing over. What it started doing is it started giving real-time context to these entities, right? That, hey, this is Huzefa, who's part of the sales group trying to access, let's say, a Salesforce CRM, right? So context was right. I'm in sales, I need to access the CRM, right? Imagine a contractor or somebody who's from the HR trying to access the pipeline of the sales. Immediately the context was not matched, and it used to stop there and then. And so that's the advantage which started coming in with SASE. You kind of got your protection going right till the edge, and it started delivering in several ways. Flexibility is one, right? With cloud-based infra, you can implement and deliver all of these over the web, over the cloud, irrespective where the location is, right? A. B, instead of buying multiple point products, utilizing multiple hardware boxes and delivering all of these, it started utilizing a single platform, right? Which dramatically reduced the cost, complexity itself. And end of the day, that's what the buzzword is, but it started delivering that true zero trust approach to the cloud, removing that trust assumptions between users, the devices, the applications that they connect to. So that's what the SASE ends up doing all of these.
That's very interesting, Huzefa. Okay, so we've just discussed about how things should be, securely enabled in a remote working environment. Let's talk about what should cloud practitioners be aware of while considering hybrid work models. What are the tips that you would suggest them?
Yeah, I feel that's the most important question in everybody's mind right now, because as we get into this transformation, as businesses get into this transformation, there's a huge responsibility on the custodians of the IT, the CISOs of the world and the IT ops, to deliver that transformation in a very consistent and secure way. Now let's take a step back and ask ourselves, right, what is that top 3-4 questions that any cybersecurity practitioner, a CISO, or its team, or including the CIO, needs to answer to an organization when you talk about security, right? Number one, do I have the enough visibility of my environment? Where are my, as I said, my crown jewels, my most important data, my devices, my applications? Do I have a visibility to that? Number two question, am I being attacked right now? Right? And you've seen enough examples of recent times in supply chain attacks and stuff. People were unaware, correct? So the second important question is, am I being attacked? And the third thing as a follow-up is, how fast can I respond? Right? Do I have the tools and mechanism to respond and ensure that bleeding is stopped? And then you cover all of this with some sort of governance, which your software delivers, right? Now, when you take these three principles, Kriti, and when you apply to this change hybrid work model landscape in terms of remote work, in terms of the cloud, you are now suddenly talking about people taking different tools, different solutions to address to multiple different use cases, right? Hey, I am an end user. I need to access my data center, right, using my office device. Oh, okay, let's take a VPN. Let's do that. So that's one solution, number one. Hey, now I need my mobile and I need to access that SaaS application because I'm in sales. I need to access the CRM. Oh, for doing that, let's have another second solution to take place in that. Hey, and by the way, those two solutions don't talk to each other. So what ended up happening was a plethora of complexity around hundreds of tools being used just to deliver this whole outcome, as I said, of securing the entire landscape. And you name it, manpower resources, the skilled manpower resources were not available to manage. But most importantly, the dreaded of all is the number of alerts that started generating with this multiple tools. It was like a barrage of alerts on a daily basis, tens and thousands of alerts being generated across all of these different tools and devices. How in the hell do you make sense of all of these? So, in a nutshell, where we are coming to is, in order to kind of take control of this, cloud practitioners should look at a platform approach. And there are three things which a platform approach helps, a cybersecurity platform helps you achieve. One, that platform is a very, very comprehensive and integrated, which means all of these use cases are being addressed by a platform with the best of breed solution being delivered by that platform, something like Palo Alto Networks has, and it is integrated among each other, right? So the customer doesn't have to worry that, hey, I take A solution for one use case, B for another, and they don't talk to each other. Both the uses, all the use cases covered, all the use cases talking to each other, integrated and comprehensive, number one. Number two, needs to be very, very automated. Automation is the key here. Why? Because we talked about the adversaries, right? Almost 300% rise, I mentioned. And they are not by some college going hacker. They are state sponsored. They are very, very smart, deep pocketed criminals out there who are going after this in a very, very automated manner, using all kind of sophisticated AI ML techniques. So your response, your approach should also be automated. It should be completely AI driven. It should be completely playbook driven in terms of both detection and response. And lastly, along with integrated and automated, the most crucial element needs to be simplified. Has to be very, very simple to adapt, approach, operate, right from the time you procure to the time you implement a solution. A platform should be able to give you in a very, very simplistic terms, or very, very user-friendly terms, give you all the right reports, cadence, and stuff like that. So a comprehensive, integrated platform, an automated platform, a very simple to use platform is the order of the day, I would say. And the only reason you have to do this is, again, one final statement from me is you need to turn around your security from being reactive to being proactive. That's what it is.
Great. Thank you for those advices, Sefa. Moving on to the last question, what are the future aspects? What does the future of the hybrid work model look like?
Yeah, from our level, we see two, three things that I would want to get the audience attention to. Number one, obviously, we're not seeing any slowdown as such on the digital transformation journey or the move to cloud. However, what we are seeing accelerated is, irrespective of whether you're taking a cloud native approach or you're developing applications on cloud or you're lifting lock, stock, and barrel, there is a huge and tremendous surge in securing or getting the cybersecurity integrated in a shift left approach. What I mean to say is, while these applications are being developed, written around, using your IDs and using your languages, there itself, cybersecurity gets bolted on, goes through the vulnerability check, checks all the wrong things, right things. And while that code gets into the CI/CD pipeline and ultimately lands up in your production, you are not kind of doing security as an afterthought and getting into that vicious cycle. It's already taken considered of, and the entire cycle is very, very fast. So number one, shift left integration, or should I say DevSecOps rather than DevOps is one thing which we see in the future of the hybrid work model. Number one. Number two, uh, I spoke about devices, right? When I said, this remote devices manage and manage. However, there's this third area which is developing hugely and getting a lot of inroads. Is IoT, Internet of Things devices, right? So that devices will no longer be restricted to a laptop or an end computer. It could be your camera, it could be a printer, which is getting connected on the net. And you'll be amazed to see the kind of attacks which we have seen happening on these kind of devices. Very different protocol, very different methodology. So your IoT device proliferation and how you manage and protect those is going to be another area which is coming up big, and then not restricted to one domain. I mean, healthcare is obviously leading here with all the Internet of Medical Things, but even manufacturing for that matter. So that's another area which we see developing. And third, I would probably say 5G, right? That is going to increase the adoption and deliver, and the onus will be on telco to kind of deliver a clean pipe to the end user. Who's going to use probably these network to connect to uh, the applications on the cloud. So these are the top 2-3 things that I see.
Well, those were some mind-blowing insights, Huzefa, I must say. Thank you for, being a part of the show and sharing so many details and information with us.
Pleasure. It was. I hope the listeners find this useful and implement some of these things and have a very, very robust and secure journey in this entire hybrid cloud.
Absolutely, Huzefa. Thank you so much, audience. This brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for listening. This is your host signing off. Stay tuned for more podcasts on some latest technological innovations with us on TechGig. Thank you so much.